The WKYT studios in Lexington. This is Kentucky Newsmakers with Bill Bryant.
Good morning. I'm hoping you're having a great weekend and welcome into WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. It's already been a tough summer in Lexington with violent crime, and today's guest knows it will all eventually end up on his desk. That is, if the crimes are solved. Fayette Commonwealth's attorney Ray Larson is here. He says if people want to take their streets and neighborhoods back from shootings and stabbings and assaults and robberies, they need to stand up and tell police what they know. Larson is a tough prosecutor with a national profile. He's often criticized moves to lower the number of people in jails and prisons when it means releasing convicts before their time is done. Kentucky has done that in recent years to save money. Larson has been the top prosecutor in Lexington since 1985. He's seen a lot. He has handled hundreds of high-profile cases. Ray the DA, Commonwealth's attorney, Ray Larson joining us, and we welcome you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Bill.
Good to see you. As you hear about and we report these shootings and other street violence, and we mentioned the almost 30 years you've been in this job. Give us the long view and how you describe these recent weeks in Lexington.
Well, if you've been involved in the criminal justice system in Lexington, like I have for 250 years, it seems, you realize that, well, in 1986 we had 26 homicides. And at one point between then and now, we also had 26 homicides. And so the number of homicides we have normally is somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 now. We're at 11 halfway through the year, and that, of course, alarms a lot of people. And they've happened in a kind of in a burst here. The thing that concerns me is not, it concerns me because we're losing lives out there. And people that commit those crimes need to suffer the consequences of their actions. But I'm very concerned about the number of shootings, just shootings that are going on that sometimes miss, most of the time miss, but sometimes just injure people, don't kill them. It's those kind of crimes that are particularly concerning to me. Now, the homicides, we got the homicide unit at the Lexington Police Department, probably one of the best in the country, because we are constantly solving in the mid 90%. The last 2 years, they've solved 100%. And so they will solve these homicides. It may take some time, and it may take somebody that has information to get arrested, and they try to figure out how can I help myself, and they'll say I have information, and they'll give the information, and that'll ultimately end up breaking the case. So I feel comfortable that our homicide unit will solve these things, but I'm very concerned about this random shooting that goes on.
Because you said several of the homicides are unsolved, and many of these, as you say, random shootings that, as you say, may hit a building, may hit somebody in the arm and be an assault charge or whatever, those as well have not been cleared by arrest in some cases.
Well, here's the deal. You'll have somebody that has been shot in the leg. They'll go to the emergency room, and the police will show up and they'll ask them, you know, who shot you? And they'll say, I don't know. Well, of course they know. They just don't want to be involved. You see, it's that mentality, that culture that we have got to break. This don't snitch baloney that's going on has got to be broken if we want to stop this. People that live in the neighborhoods where all this shooting is going on, they want to stop it, they got to start talking. But they're afraid, you see.
So silence is one of the biggest obstacles right now.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'll give you an example. There was a homicide case that occurred in Lexington a few years ago. And the surveillance video was on the scene, and we saw the person shoot into a car and somebody ultimately died. There were 12 people standing around this incident who saw it, heard it, but guess what? They come up with this situational blindness, this situational deafness, and say, I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. Well, that's not helpful, you see. We have to, people have to know that if you're going to commit this kind of crime, that people in the community are fed up with it, and they're going to tell the police what they know so we can solve it and hammer these people.
Would you say, Ray, that it's some points, though, people have reasonable fears?
Sure they do.
Be reprisals?
Absolutely. It's, yes. And that's the concern. So what we have to be able to do as a law enforcement community and a community overall is when somebody tells the police something and somebody threatens them, that person needs to call the police, and then we need to charge those people and just kick them as hard as we can. You can't let people get away with threatening witnesses. Otherwise, we got no chance.
There are now some organized marches, community outreach efforts. As you said, some neighborhoods are truly concerned and people are banding together. Do you think that is a start in getting a handle on the situation?
Sure, and it's the mother of one of the homicide victims that has been wanting something like this to happen since her child was killed, and so good for her, and it hopefully everybody will support her. I know the police are involved in this. I think the first one of these marches is on Saturday, today, and my hope is to be there. If I can clear it with my social planner, also known as my wife. Yeah.
Well, so that was my question. If you could go to these groups, if you could go to the to a march or to some of these outreach meetings that will be held, what would you say to them?
Help. We got to have you involved. We got to have, and we understand the concern that you have. We understand that, but it's not going to stop until we have some courageous people who are willing to stand up and say, I know something. Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell the police what I know. See?
Do you believe that Kentucky's criminal justice reforms, which have passed over the last few years, which were designed to save the state money spent for incarceration in a state which has a very high incarceration rate, that has led to too many people being let out who should not be out of jail?
It's called House Bill 463. I call it the soft on crime catch and release experiment with the safety of our citizens. And I think it is a colossal failure. All you have to do is talk to police who will, off the record, tell you the problems that this piece of legislation has created for them in their ability to enforce laws. They'll tell you this is just, it's been a disaster for crime fighting. Now, has it saved any money? I don't know that it has. They'll tell you that it has. But you know, Bill, something that you have never seen is a cost-benefit analysis between the cost of incarceration, putting them in prison or jail, versus the cost of crime. Now, people in Kentucky pay taxes, and of course we think we pay too much. But one of the main purposes that we pay taxes for is public safety, you see. And I think that I don't think the public's getting their tax money's worth. I think 65% of the thugs that go through Fayette Circuit Court are probated. And they're put on these conditions. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to put you back on the street, but here are the conditions you have to live with, right? Don't commit another crime. Don't drop dirty. Don't use drugs. Don't do these kind of things. And then when they do, they're brought back to court. And guess what? 56% of those people are reprobated, you see? And it's...
Well, as you know, obviously, cost was one thing that was addressed by the legislature, and then the other thing was that if people can be gotten out of this cycle of going to jail and going back to jail and so forth early on, that maybe that will save them from a life of crime.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. And you bought into this, look, let's take care of the criminals mentality. Who's taking care of the victims? Don't you think the victims are entitled to get a little relief from these thugs, hoodlums, and punks that continue to victimize them? Property criminals are the ones that are the burglars, the breaking into your car, that sort of thing. Happens all over the county, all over our Fayette County, and you can talk to a group of 10 people, and somebody in that group has either been burglarized, their car's been broken into, their car's been stolen, or they've lost their air conditioning unit for $40 worth of copper, and it costs them $5,000 to replace it. And those fools are probated, put right back on the street. And it's we got to change this so that the tax-paying, law-abiding public feels like they're getting a little for their money.
And aren't there some crimes for which people now are cited that used to be take somebody to jail sort of offense?
That's the main issue with the police, is they give them a ticket. And when you give somebody a ticket, you can't stop them. And if you can't get them out of the car, you can't do a Terry frisk, make sure they're safe. Because what happens there, you find some convicted felon that, guess what, has got a gun. You're not supposed to have a gun. We got to start being able to enforce our laws. Now, you know, a very small percentage of criminals commit the vast majority of crimes. 5% commit between 60 and 80% of the crime. My theory is throw those repeat offenders in prison and give the public a little relief from their crime behavior.
So you've always theorized that part of the reason to put somebody in jail is to separate them from society more than just punishment.
Protect us. Yeah, I'm not, I hope when they go to prison they're rehabilitated. I think that would be wonderful.
Do you believe in rehabilitation?
Some. There's some that'll be rehabilitated. But right now, let me tell you how most of these characters function. They function on the risk of punishment. What is my risk of punishment if I get caught? You see? And if it's up, then a significant percentage of them don't commit a crime because they don't want to go to prison. A lot of these guys that go through Fayette Circuit Court, they've got significant criminal records. You see, and they really don't care if they get another felony. What the hell's another felony, right? So what happens is they just want to make sure they don't go to prison or go to jail, incarcerated. And 65% of them don't. The risk of punishment is low these days, and as a result, we're seeing these repeat property criminals do it over and over again.
Ray Larson is with us. He's the Fayette County Commonwealth's attorney, the top prosecutor in Lexington, and we're back with him. We'll talk about more of some of the technology being used to solve crimes and so forth in just a moment on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back now to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers as we continue to meet with Prosecutor Ray Larson, Fayette County's top prosecutor. And you speak around the country a lot, really, and talk about things that are going on in the world of crime fighting. And there have been significant changes in your 30 years of doing this job. Talk about some of the things available to you now that weren't when you started.
DNA.
Yeah.
Even in the... Do you realize that when in 1980, close to 1990, the question was about DNA, and the defense attorneys really opposed it. It's not certain enough, those kind of things. DNA has made a lot of difference in these TV shows like CSI and NCI, whatever they are. They're just 30% of the programming have caused people to expect that technology in every case. Did you know that in only 15% of the cases do you ever find a fingerprint?
Really?
Yeah. And in DNA, you don't get DNA every time, but people, and so what's happening now is police departments are doing what doctors have done over the years, and that is they do a test that they think probably is not all that necessary, but they do it in order to keep from being sued. It's called and so the police, law enforcement, have to do those kind of things too, because people expect, juries expect to hear about all these CSI tricks that happen, and most of them are just, you know, first of all, it takes more than 42 minutes to solve a crime and wrap it up in a bow, and just like they do on TV. And it's yeah, there are expectations, but there's the technology is pretty impressive now.
What about social media? Do people commit crimes now and then talk about it?
Sure they do.
You get to go look at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, hey, there is no limit on the stupidity of people. And the people that commit these kind of crimes, well, I'll give you an example. Some guy was a convicted felon, and as a result, he's prohibited from possessing a firearm. And so the police go and check on things like Facebook, and guess what? There's this yo-yo standing there with 2 guns, holding them like this, grinning like a Cheshire cat. And so all of us, and there's a date on it and everything else, and guess what? That's called proof. And he just stuck his foot in it, and we were happy to oblige and help him with his trip to the penitentiary.
Have you seen juries change over the 30 years? You mentioned you see the expectations maybe change. They expect now it's going to come in like it does on the TV shows. But have you seen a difference in a willingness to serve or a willingness to listen to both sides?
Oh, jurors are, let me tell you, I got a lot of respect for jurors. They have a tough job to do, and the people that serve on juries work hard. They work as hard as anybody in the system. Now, they don't want to be on the jury. I mean, you would be astounded at the number of things you hear about why I can't be on the jury and that sort of thing. But once they're there, they take the job very seriously. They make decisions sometimes I don't agree with, but it's their job, not mine. My job is to see that the charges are brought and we try to prove them. And it's the jury's decision to decide whether we have or we haven't, and to what extent, and they have to recommend a punishment.
If you have the proof, and here is your case, do you prefer to try to reach some kind of a plea agreement or go to a trial?
Well, here's the deal. There are cases that are being pled, meaning a person is pleading guilty, because they know that they'll be probated. You see what I mean? And so the number of trials is dropping, really. It's probably a nationwide thing because of these catch and release laws that are being passed around. And then you got this character named Eric Holder, who is basically not enforcing any federal laws to speak of. But that drops the number of trials because people plead guilty. Yeah.
Earlier this week,
and I can't keep them from pleading guilty.
And I want to ask you about this. Earlier this week, a defendant tried to take back his plea under an agreement with your office, and Judge Ernesto Scorsoni did not allow that. Said it was too late to change the plea unless there was some constitutional problem or there had been some problem in the process. When is it too late to change a plea?
Well, there need to be a change of circumstance. There need to be the guy has made the fact that you just don't like the idea that, oh, well, hell, I'm getting ready to go to prison. I don't want to do that. That doesn't count, you see. But if there's a mistake if there's a change in circumstances, if somebody hasn't been told the ramifications of his plea, those kind of things. Now, a judge can set a plea aside, but just because you don't like what's about to happen, you can tell that to the chaplain. Don't tell it to the judge, because good for Scorsone. I mean, that's what you got to do.
When do you think people slip into a mind, and I'm not talking about something that happens along the way, but get into a repeat situation where they become lifetime criminals? Is that in growing up and not getting guidance? Is it a decision that somebody makes? What's your feeling about that?
Okay, let me tell you, it's like raising, criminal justice system, it's like raising kids. You draw a line and you tell your child, you cross that line, you're in trouble. And guess what? Kids cross the line. And the parent will say, all right, you cross the line. Let me tell you something. Next time you cross that line, you're dead meat. Right? They cross the line again. And what happens? Next thing the parent says, okay, that's it. One more time and I'm telling your dad. See? And pretty soon there are no lines. Well, that's what the court system is doing. Probation, 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 and these people don't know what the boundaries are. That's the problem.
And is that law, or is it judges' decisions?
Both. Yeah, this House Bill 463 was just fired up about this, what they call supervision in the community. You know what that means? Probation. That means you don't go to jail. You just keep you in the community, you see. And if people would suffer consequences every time, now they don't have to be 1,000,000 years in prison, but consequence, then you're going to all of a sudden start enforcing the lines, and then they're going to say, uh-oh, I know what the lines are, and I'm not going to cross the line.
Our remaining moments with Ray Larson here on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers, the Fayette County prosecutor, the Commonwealth's attorney. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back into WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We've enjoyed a good discussion here with Ray Larson, Fayette County prosecutor, as we've addressed some of the things going on right now in Lexington, in an attempt to kind of get a hold on the crime. Visibility of police, is that highly important?
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be out there and seen?
Yeah, yeah.
What is this? People wonder, you know, you've kind of labeled yourself or branded yourself Ray the DA, at least to that national audience, mm-hmm. and that checks out your website and your social media, which is very robust, by the way, if people do want to check that out.
That means it's opinionated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ray the DA, though, when you are the Commonwealth's attorney in mm-hmm. Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Well, when somebody says, what do you do? And I say, I'm the Fayette Commonwealth's attorney, and they say, oh. And it's clear they don't have a clue. What does that mean? You know, Commonwealth attorney. Well, are you common? Well, maybe, but everybody knows what a DA is, and so I just started that, and it's really it's caught on. It's branding, I guess. Yeah, Ray the DA is how I'm known around the country, because, you know, with the National District Attorneys Association and that bunch, I'm introduced as Ray the DA.
How often do you know, younger prosecutors, people just getting into this, give you a call, look for your advice?
Every election cycle, when somebody new comes in, there are half a dozen people will come up and spend the day with us at one time or another to see how our office operates. We have a reputation for being kind of a hard-ass bunch at our place, and that's a reputation. Look, we're not. We're consistent. We try to be consistent. That means if you get charged with a crime and the same crime is charged by a homeless person, we want both of you to suffer the same consequence. And that's perceived by some people as being a hard-ass. Well, okay, guilty, if that's your definition, and that's where we are.
You've told me before you could not be a defense attorney.
Well, I have been a defense attorney when I first started out, but I defended 4 cases. All 4 of my cases pled guilty because they were guilty, but they weren't as guilty as the prosecutor thought they were, you see? And so we negotiated something that fit what they did. Now, what they did is they need to be responsible for and deal with it like a man, or a woman for that matter.
When, you know, the scales of justice to you, it needs to be it needs to be heavy on your side, then,
no,
right?
it needs to be fair. And people that commit crimes should suffer. It's the way you were raised, Bill. If you break the rules, you suffer consequences. It's the way I was raised, the way most people were raised. And that's why people get so disgusted with the criminal justice system when somebody that has committed a crime doesn't suffer the consequences.
Well, thank you for coming in, as always. Appreciate it. Ray Larson, the Fayette Commonwealth's attorney. Ray the DA.
Right.
And we want to thank you for being with us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. I'll see you bright and early on WKYT this morning at 4:30, Monday through Friday. We start early. Also mid-morning at 10 and on WKYT News at noon. Make it a good week ahead.